Good morning. Okay, I'm excited. We had a fantastic week last week, and I was at the Risk Media CEO Exchange. This is an annual event. About 3 years ago was the first time I attended. It's the top 200 broker owners around the nation. So it's basically the Better Homes and Gardens, Eddie Holiday's, Coldwell Bankers, a lot of the biggest brokerages in the nation. So it's exciting to learn what their executive management and their executive teams are doing to prepare for change in the future, and how they view the industry as a whole, and so many different exciting things that are going on in the industry. So to sum it up in 20 minutes is really tough, but I'm going to hit just a few of the highlights that I think are important for you. But I want to first preface this. I was a little bit hesitant to talk about this today because Mike Ferry told me about a year ago. He said, Logan, he said, you offer too many things to the agents. There's too many different directions for agents to go. The social media, for one, he thought was just ludicrous. And I didn't understand that at the time. He said, if you give people too many choices, then it's human nature. We all gravitate towards what's easiest. And let's face it, prospecting and consistently calling your past clients and your sphere of influence and building that trust with your sphere of influence on a daily, consistent basis is one of the toughest, one of the most difficult things in the industry. Complacency and the things that keep us from doing that are the things that it's so easy to go to other forms or fashions that may appear to be easier, whether it's automated lead generation, whether it's buying leads, whether it's lead services, whether it's other referral sources, but generating those contacts, it is the most difficult thing to do in the business. So I want to preface everything that I say with our goal at the Waller Group, and it will always be our overarching goal of everything that we do, is to make sure that we provide an environment where it's as easy as possible for you to overcome that complacency and for you to generate those contacts on a daily basis with consistency, and to increase your productivity, so in turn you increase your profitability and meet your sales goals. So with all this being said today that I'm about to go into, that is the most important. So with that, before I start on my notes, let's go ahead and run through the KDNA, our top agents last week. So fantastic job, Rudy. Rudy was our top agent last week. Rudy had 2 sales he opened. He had 1 sale closed. He also had 300 flyers, postcards that he put out. He also had 45 hours of contacting. So keep in mind, if you're putting these flyers out, postcards by hand, then we count that as contacting hours as well. So, but those are things that you want to measure, how much time you're investing in creating these contacts for engagements. Also, Rudy had 6 hours of previewing last week, and also 15 new contacts into his database, new leads, and then also he had 2 listing appointments held, and again 2 sales open and 1 sale closed. So fantastic job, Rudy. Kathy Crow, even though she's been challenged with her knee, she is still kicking, and Kathy still made 65 contacts last week, and also took a listing last week. And I know she's been practically bedridden, so that shows you the importance of that cell phone. And if you're on the phone, contacts generate contracts, right? Frederick, good job, Frederick. 200 flyers, postcards out, 50 contacts. That's great. Also, he had a listing and 3 sales open. That's fantastic, and 1 sale closed last week. Good job, Frederick. Tammy, 59 contacts last week, 125 flyers, postcards or letters sent out, and then also had 18 hours of prospecting, creating engagements. Also had 9 new prospects, and also 2 pre-listing appointments. So good job, Tammy. Jill Bell. Jill's a new licensee. So Jill has only been with the brokerage a few weeks, and Jill is making progress. Jill is in the hot market at Frisco. She took a listing last week and also opened a transaction. So good job, Jill. Rose and Jesse, 30 contacts last week. Erica, very, very fantastic job, Erica Alvarez. Erica Alvarez, 87 contacts last week. So we know that she has a coach 30 minutes a week that holds her accountable to her contacts that she's making. And the coach, if the coach says 100 contacts a week or 90 contacts a week, then dividing those contacts by hours contacted and how many appointments that you're setting is what we all need to be focusing on. How many appointments are we setting based on the contacts and the referrals that we're getting from these contacts? Are these past clients? Are these other homeowners? Who are you contacting? So that is, Erica also had 2 listings last week. Great job, Erica, and also 1 transaction opened. Demi, good job last week. Also opened a contract. So excellent. There's something else that I wanted to just add to our KDNA sheet, and we're not going to add it on the metrics, but I want you to think about this, is that Intero, one of the largest brokerages in the nation, who also uses the same software. Jimmy Belfaro, I saw him last week at this meeting, which he'll actually be the CEO next year for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. And Gino told me that they also track note cards written. So that's something else. That I listened to a presentation of Gino, and he talked about keystone habits and cornerstone habits, how small consistencies create greater habits. And so he told me a year ago that he measures note cards and how many note cards are written. And they actually only measure 5 things. So, and one of the 5 metrics they measure is how many note cards the agents are sending on a weekly basis. And it kind of dawned on me finally this week when he talked again about the keystone habits. And the reason they measure note cards is that's something that's easy. If you're just doing 5 note cards a week, who can't do that, right? That's an easy thing to do. Everyone should be able to do that. So if they're measuring that with their agents weekly, and they see agents that are consistently doing that every week, and it's the consistency that's key, guys. You guys know that. Then that consistent behavior leads to other consistent behaviors. And that's where greatness comes from, is from the consistent behavior that constantly improves. And if you have a coach that's holding you accountable to consistently improving, then that's where over time you meet your goals and you meet your sales numbers. So keep that in mind. Note cards are important, as simple as they are. It's also very personal. So that kind of ties in with some of the things I want to talk about in this on my notes. So personalization and content creation. These are not just buzzwords, but these are real areas that are changing our industry. So one example of personalization, I'll give you several examples of personalization, but one is Sephora Cosmetics. So they studied, they know that the first question that women ask at the cosmetic counter, or that has to be determined, is what is their skin tone? So it's kind of like, think of you and you're pre-qualifying your clients. What are your first questions that you're asking? So what they did at Sephora is that they developed a technology where they can determine the skin tone, because they knew that the average woman went through 8 different types of tries before they got the right skin tone. So that's one example of personalization, how as a company and as a whole they were able to really personalize, bring personalization to their industry. Of course, it's really bolstered their sales. Think about Amazon. When you're purchasing online and your transaction history, it personalizes that shopping experience, so it makes it more convenient and easier. So that's another example of personalization. Now, those are things that these technology companies can take from us. So you have to keep that in mind, is that I had several really interesting meetings with large broker owners on the West Coast that spend tens of millions of dollars on technology. And this is something that with predictive analytics that we'll see more and more of. But the exciting part is that you being personal, think of yourself more like a hotel concierge. When you're staying in a hotel, nothing takes the place of that hotel concierge. I keep in mind this is more applicable to the luxury market, but that hotel concierge, they know what's going on locally. They know what's going on with whether it's shopping, whether it's restaurants, whether it's shows, regardless of any point of what you're there in that hotel for, whether it's business or whether it's for recreation. So are you providing concierge type services for your clients? And this also ties directly into content creation and your white paper and local market knowledge. So something else that really reiterated every presentation, every CEO, every leader that I talked to at this last week at this meeting reiterated the importance of local market knowledge and how They're training their agents more on neighborhood data and micro data on these neighborhoods and on what's the dynamics. It's stuff we've been teaching for the last 2 years, and it's in our white paper. So the other thing that wasn't really tied together at this conference that we've been doing for the last 2 years, and I think is very important, and that is tying together content creation with local market knowledge. And that's what we do with the white paper, and that white paper allows you to put that on your blog on conversion. And if you really drive engagement through Facebook and through your sphere of influence and people that are in that neighborhood, through your flyers, through direct mail, through your local vendors and business owners, then that will all percolate into attracting the right buyers and sellers. And that's a strategy that takes time. So that takes, as we always say, it takes between a year and 18 months to create that market dominance, and that also comes with hard prospecting, and it comes with making those contacts in that area. But local market knowledge was reiterated more and more and more. So back to personalization. What is it? A question I want you to ask is, how have you been most impressed with a personalized experience? Whether it was a shopping experience, whether it was purchasing a car, whether it was a hotel. The hospitality industry does a fantastic job of this. When they remember your name when you walk into the hotel, and from when they greet you from coming out of the car, Mr. Waller, so great to see you again. When they greet you at the elevator to take you up to your room, it's, we remembered this shampoo that you like. These are things, I'm giving you examples. This is not me last weekend, but it did make me think more about hospitality. And I have had those experiences before, and I think that industry is the most applicable to our own industry in providing that impression of going above and beyond for your clients or for your customers. So what are you doing to do that? And in the real estate industry, this also ties into another thought, which is what's so great about being a realtor. I don't think I'll even have time to get to it today, but it's that you can provide all these things. It's knowing and profiling your past clients and profiling people that live in your area and profiling them by identifying what are their anniversaries, their wedding anniversary, what is their birthdays, what are their likes and dislikes. Guys, we're living in a pretty transparent world right now. So you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Facebook, and you can learn quite a bit about people in a specific neighborhood and in an area without too much time. So I would really challenge you to identify the basics, which are birthdays, job, the Ford questions. The Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is one of the classic reads for any salesperson, and it's about the Ford methodology and how do you create that personalization. And people remember that. And when you're buying a home, it's something that it's expected, but where they're impressed is after you close the sale, and then you're calling, and you're still in a personalized experience. That's where the referrals come from. So guys, the agents that are the most profitable, the agents that are generating the most revenue and the most referrals and run the best businesses, are agents that have a system for identifying those personal details with their clients and their sphere of influence, which is generally within a specific market area. And they're consistently following up with those people and providing value. So I have a friend of mine that he's profiled my preferences with his personal assistant. So his personal assistant lets him know whenever there's a bottle of wine that's from a wine maker that I like, a certain shopping experience, there's certain travel experiences or openings, then he'll send an email to me, and he's just a friend. This is not his business. This is just a friend of mine. So imagine you guys, that's part of your business, is to understand those personal details, the likes and dislikes of people, and then enhance that experience to where when you call, they're looking forward to that call. And another thing that I heard, not just this last week, but in so many other, when I go to conferences, is I'm a pretty analytical person. So how you make someone feel through these personal experiences is also really important. And that's another thing that nothing can take the place, whether it's Amazon or no technology in our industry, is how you make that person feel when you're on the phone with them or when you're face to face. And of course, 70% of communication is face to face. So That's something else that you want to really subconsciously think about is that when you call someone on their birthday, then that's usually a great feeling. They appreciate that, and so you appreciating that person is how are you systematizing that, and how are you building that into their top producer? There's Realty Juggler, there's Microsoft Outlook, even conversion. So do you have all of those in your notes to where you're personalizing the experience, not just the transaction, but then after the follow-up, and also people that live in your geographic area? But keep in mind, as salespeople, 300 people is the magic number in that database. So you may think, wow, if I have a neighborhood that I'm farming of 2,000 to 3,000 people, then how can I, to try to get all that data on all those people would be nearly impossible. Well, think about it. You only need trust and credibility with 300 of those people to generate the referrals to drive a business that is extremely profitable, very, very profitable business, earning over $200,000 a year. So don't let the numbers of this overwhelm you. If you're focusing on an area of 2,000 to 3,000 homes in those neighborhoods, those homeowners, only 300 of those homeowners do you have to have trust and credibility with and a great relationship with in order to drive an incredible referral business, earning over $200,000 a year. Okay, so why do people buy from salespeople versus a computer? They order online goods at Amazon that are commodities, and it's because it's easy and convenient. Are you making the experience as easy and convenient as possible? And again, Hotel Concierge, I think, is a great example of that. Content creation. Another thing that I've heard echoed over and over is today's buyers, they're looking information online first. Well, that's no surprise, but are you providing that information that's local and relative in their neighborhood? And we'll discuss more of this in the Google presentation, which was really interesting, which I probably won't have time to cover today. Back to the basics. This was another thing, recurring theme that makes me optimistic about our industry, because the basics are local market knowledge, and also whether it's and direct mail. So direct mail is another thing that a lot of the big brokerages are going back to. They are partnering with local businesses. So even some of the direct mail campaigns, they're partnering with whether it's local coffee shops or local vendors in the area to co-brand themselves and also to share marketing expenses. Something, guys, I've been telling you guys for the last 2 years. So it's interesting to hear a presentation on stage in front of the top 200 CEOs in the industry just last week from At Properties, which is one of the top brokerages in Chicago, and they are doing the same thing now for the last year, and it's really enhanced their marketing and their engagement in the local community. Teleprospecting and face-to-face contact. That's another back to the basics, and we just talked about in our KDNA, and that's why we measure those KDNA numbers every week, because the contacts to contract ratio is so important. The contact to referral ratio is so important. That's basic methodologies. And also, being a realtor, the greatest job on earth, and why is that? There were a couple, I think it was the CEO of, it could have been Ed Kravchuk. He's the CEO of Mason McDuffie. It's a brokerage that's over 100 years old, based on the West Coast out of Silicon Valley. And they have over 1,800 agents on the West Coast. And he said this business is, he was an agent himself years ago, and he said that he was so excited, and his excitement, enthusiasm about the business today was I think he's 72 years old, probably greater than it's ever been. And it's because being a realtor, when you really think about the fundamentals of being a realtor, you can control your time, you can do things on your schedule, you can control your income, you can make as much money or as little money as you want. And the greatest thing, and what he reminded me of, is that if you do your job right, then you make people happy. What other industry can you be in where you can really fulfill people's dreams and make them happy and make this experience so hassle-free? And that's where our moving boxes and our moving services and so many of the things that we foster and that we implement as a brokerage are to facilitate and help you guys facilitate that. We want to make this as easy and be as stress-free as possible for that buyer and seller. So are you doing that? Are you making this a happy transaction to where it's almost like a shopping experience, to where they're excited about it? And that's something that made me excited about just the job of being a realtor. Sometimes we get so into the day-to-day minutia, we forget about what we're doing as an industry as a whole and as a salesperson, is that you're not just selling, but you're also fulfilling dreams. And also think about that someone's house itself. How much knowledge do you have when it comes to architecture, when it comes to interior design? I was talking with one person a couple days ago about how the fabrics and the textures of fabrics create different sensations, different feelings, and different moods in areas. And so the use of natural light in houses, and how the natural light is used, and how the lighting is laid out, the lighting plan, there's so many different elements to a home. And people spend so much of their life in their home. It should be a revered place, and it is a sanctuary. And are you treating it like that? And do you have that same reverence for people's houses that so many homeowners do, and that they depend on you as that professional to help them facilitate that transaction and identify the house that meets their needs? So when you cross someone's threshold, I've always said that it's such a personal experience when you walk into someone's house. If someone lets you stay in their house as their vacation home, or if they let you, you're invited for dinner in someone's house, and think of all of the memories, and when it comes to dining and meals in a house. And do you help create that experience, and do you think about those things when you're showing property, and when you're selling property, and when you're working with your buyers and your sellers? So the interior design trends, interior design elements, textiles, all of those are things that should be thought about and considered with your clients. Okay, so I'm running a little bit over time. I wanted to mortgage finance education. I think I'll chat about that next week. Predictive analytics, Trulia's presentation summary, Google's presentation summary, agent ratings, and future of agent selection. A lot of these things that we're already doing, but it kind of reiterated things that we're already doing in the brokerage. And to hear Trulia and Google's presentation and the analytics and the data that they have, really interesting. So we'll talk about that next week. In the meantime, keep in mind our fourth quarter listing contest. So push hard to get listings on the board for fourth quarter. And the activities that you do this week will dictate your listing results for October, November, December. Keep that in mind. Okay, guys, have a fantastic and a productive week. Thank you.